So welcome into Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon, or Cole, whatever you refer to me as. No big deal. In a good way. I don't care. So I've been called everything under the sun. Rat, pig, horse, dog being a huge one and a huge theme. Hippo, rhino, dino, and lizard. And as they say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Of course, words do hurt people, but that's for another discussion. The idea is like physically, they can't put you out of commission, although mentally, that's another story. So, anyway, I'm here on day 104 of my one video each day, 365 days. Donor campaign, raising money for life lost, stolen, robbed, tortured, raped, and death threatened, if you will, and so much more. Beginning the fourth Monday of January 2011, when I thought I'd be murdered in my apartment, I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment by a series of orchestrated events. I was shaking, trembling, convulsing, unable to hold my phone in order to call anyone. Turns out when you're incredibly terrorized and terrified, in my case, my muscles went completely limp. I could barely hold my phone, and this is basically what was going on, and I couldn't speak. My voice would not manifest, if you will. I was in an apartment, a very small studio shoebox shaped apartment. It really was like a shoebox. I was on the first floor, front half apartment of a row home. A lot of row homes here are converted into apartments. And in this case, bars were on the window. A lot of first floor apartments in Philadelphia in general, but Center City. I was south of Rittenhouse Square, about 4 or 5-ish blocks south of Rittenhouse Square, down by Sharon's Bank. We won't get into it. My name is Sharon. My last name is Cole. And I don't want to, it's a thing. Sharon's Bank, the Cole House of MBNA Credit Card Bank, which was a major employer in Delaware where I grew up. I worked at the Cole House on various occasions for a various number of years in different capacities. And it's become an issue of, is there a city infrastructure around certain types of people or families, even entire families? There's more to that. I made a whole list and I'll have to remember it again. That'll be another discussion. That'll be the next video. I was trying to remember or come up with an idea for this video to single out certain things. But back to the beginning with, I was scared out of my apartment the fourth Monday of January 2011. And if that weren't enough, the games commenced. And a lot of people who I met by participating in volunteer groups, the Sapphire Fund, Team Philadelphia, these are LGBT groups. This is not to point a finger at that particular community. I actually feel like people wove themselves in. Just as I was seeking out something to do, these people might have purposely found themselves in that community in order to carry out these acts. I'm not certain. It kind of doesn't matter. Whatever community you find, I think it's more like a program, to be honest. And certain people are part of the program consciously. Some people aren't. So they will seek it. You could be a religious zealot. And if you are slated for this program, then everyone in your religious group will turn against you. I actually think it's more customized towards a certain person. So anyway, even a dance club, nightclub that's here, named, it used to be called Pure, now it's called Voyeur. Oh, we had Sisters. We'll get on this topic. We had Sisters Nightclub, which was a lesbian nightclub in the LGBT community. We also had Sister Space, which is a special camping opportunity for women to camp or enjoy a time period without any men at all around, to see what it feels like to not be part of the patriarchy, if you will. And of course, it is more like camping. So I forget that one. You might not have to sign up for work shifts. It was the Women's Music Festival where you had the Michigan Women's Music Festival that existed. And that was in Hart, Michigan. So that's another story. You know, if you happen to know someone with that name without an E, Hart, H-A-R-T, but Hart. We also have Little Sisters of the Poor, which is neat, which is right across the street from someone who ran a yoga studio in we'll just say West Philly-ish. And I have a sister, and their sister cities. Park here, which was opened after 2011. There's more to this. Like, there's the nightclub, which was Pure Voyeur. Someone mentioned that before it was Pure, it was called like DCA or something. I don't have any information on that. If it was, that's an issue, because my mom worked at a place called DCA while living in Delaware. This is where we were raised, in Delaware. My sister and I were mostly raised by our mother. Our dad, when I was 2, my dad divorced and took up house with someone else, and technically lived with her kids. His second wife, and her 2 kids from first marriage. But Delaware Contractors Association is where my mom worked. Another quick thing that came up, a lot of acronyms. So DCA, Delaware Contractors Association. I have family that lives in an area known as the Duck Pond, TDP. My mom and aunt wound up living, prior to passing away, they lived there in Turkey Creek Forest, TCF. So they would have like little stickers that would say TCF, almost like pool tags and stuff like that. I went to a therapy group called Women's Therapy Center, WTC. Some people joke like World Trade Center. There's like a million of these examples where everybody has like, these acronyms attached to them. And it's like, what if you're like in some weird, everything's divisible by 3. So then there's also the Masonic Temple here is celebrating 150 years this year. So is Sharon's Bank. They both use the same colors for their celebratory 150-year celebration, and that's green and gold or green and yellow. When I was in Gainesville, Florida, there was a Masonic Temple on Main Street there in the Duck Pond-ish area, and it had been sort of just empty and latent, or whatever you want to call it, sort of run down-ish for many years. But in the months leading up to me leaving, they started renovating the Masonic Temple in Gainesville, Florida. I don't know anything about the Masons, to be honest. I do know I had a grandfather who was part of a Noor Temple, but he passed away when I was 2, 3 years old, in that same time period when my mom was in a divorce. And he was supposed to retire down in Florida, where my aunt and her sons and her husband were going to raise the sons for the most part. Kind of, they spent most of their like teen years, and from 6 onward, they were in West Palm Beach, Florida at first. And my grandmother and grandfather wanted to retire down there. He worked on the railroad, and he was part of Noor Temple. He was on call for back then it was called Pennsylvania Railroad / like, there's another name for it. I have it on a obituary or like some sort of death certificate. But that would turn to Amtrak in the early 70s, at the same time that Joseph Biden's career would turn from lawyer to senatorial career. So he was a lawyer in the 60s, and in fact, his the law office he worked in was in the same building as a bank that my mom worked for. I think it was Bank of Delaware during the latter 60s. And the joke would be that he would always come in, just before 3 o'clock on a Friday to do his banking. And of course, back in those days, banks closed at 3 o'clock on Fridays in order to process a whole bunch of things and then head out for the weekend and be closed back in the day. Like, banks weren't open on the weekend. Things weren't convenient like they are today. You could write a check on Friday and know that it wouldn't process until Monday or Tuesday. And if you didn't have a lot of money, you would feel safe. Like, I can at least go grocery shopping on Friday. I know it won't process in my paycheck. These things will process and everything will be okay. So you don't bounce a check or what have you. These days everything operates a little bit differently. Maybe it's for the better, so that, who knows? But in the past, that's how, if you didn't have a lot of money, you would actually think this way. Like, how can I work this so that we can have food on the table and not bounce a check? So anyway, with that said, after I felt like I'd be murdered in my apartment, and it was really bad, and PTSD out the wazoo, to the point where I was like hypervigilant, shaking, convulsing, I would contact my sister first. The next day I tried to contact my mom. My sister was with me, and their phone lines had been severed or cut, or somehow magically weren't working at the back of the house. So I would get the message, we're sorry, the phone number you're trying to reach has been disconnected. So that sounds like a horror film in and of itself. And if I had tried to call my mom in the middle of the night, I didn't call her in the middle of the night because she was living with my aunt. And also, I kind of recall my mom saying stuff like, please don't call after a certain hour because I usually get to bed. It's hard for me to get up. And it's just a thing where I didn't want to bother her or burden her with whatever was going on. But if I had attempted calling them or my mom in the middle of the night, just imagine getting that message. That would have been an even better horror film for whomever created this scenario. And it could feel like people had a secret movie. Maybe not with cameras. I don't know. There could have been a camera in there and I wouldn't have known it. And they would have seen me jumping on top of my bed. I had one cat remaining of three cats that I had leading up to this. Two of them passed away. And I actually believe that the universe or powers that be made sure that my cats were killed off. I actually believe this. In order for all of this to unfold. So I had one cat remaining. He like darted off to the little mini closet that was in my apartment. And anyway, called my sister. She convinced me to call the police. And then, of course, the next day, we're sorry, your phone number has been disconnected, and so forth and so on. And anyone who I would call who would have been a friend because of all these organizations that I participated in, and I was running at the time. I actually ran some 5Ks and one half marathon at that point in time. And admittedly, not the best runner, but I was still doing it, and I had worked up my endurance, and I felt smooth at times. I was like, this is so awesome. There's the whole runner's high and everything. It's very addictive running because you get the serotonin flowing and all that other stuff. So anyway, point being, all the people that I met through these specific groups, I would turn to them, and they wouldn't exactly act or behave or respond in the most supportive way. I was really shocked by this, especially because I was part of the LGBT community where everybody claims to be supportive. And they would know, a lot of people do know what it means to be supportive in certain communities. And being supportive, and a lot of people have been through the training groups, as have I, means you say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you experienced this. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to stay here for a couple nights? What can we do to help you? They would know I wasn't trouble or a burden or anything like that. They would at least say those things and say, this is really bad. I wonder, do you want us to go to the police with you? Or do you want us to, like, maybe I can check with my dad to find out if he knows, like, how you get help for something like this? None of it. Aside from my sister, my mom, dad, they all tried to figure out, like, what is it? Or, how, at least they talked to me. But anyone who was a friend was a pseudo friend and would say things like, oh, well, do you think it's reality or perception? And this is someone who's gone on to be, quote unquote, a therapist. Yikes, scary. We don't want to get into it. So, to the point at hand, there's a lot of prep work to put someone in that position, and even enough prep work to make sure that I would wind up in a weird way living in that apartment, because I moved from an apartment that I was in. It was a Pearl Properties. Now it's owned by Renzi, but it's over above Dirty Frank's bar. It was 13th and Pine. I lived right above the door, basically, there of Pineview Apartments. And I was there for quite a few years. I started running while I was there, and I'm wondering if some of the people who participated in the same running group that I joined up with were testing me to see how I responded to certain things, like, because I had someone say, besides meeting up on Saturday mornings with everyone, do you want to run on the side? And well, I usually do a special run over to Penn's Landing from Con Park on Tuesdays and Thursdays or whatever. If you want to meet up, let's do that. So I was like, okay, great. And this is something that helped me feel like I was getting involved. I was trying to find a supportive network. I'm wondering if some of the people who were part of that running group and who participated in, say, the side run were testing to see how I responded to, say, that person not showing up. And either they show up extremely late or not showing up at all. And they would be kind of like feeling me out, sniffing me out, to see how I responded, what I would do, if I would be upset, if I would be frustrated, or it's a way of weakening someone's resolve, if you will. as adults, we all expect people to be responsible, normal, communicative in the sense of if you can't make it, you let someone know as soon as possible, what have you. And I think there were several things in place, and a lot of predators might have been um, luring in the bait, if you will, and playing a game, and they were all like either tightly connected or loosely connected and seemingly not connected at all sometimes, even though everyone was mostly part of the community that I thought I found a home in, the LGBT community. I would decide after dragon boat racing that I would move in with someone up on Poplar Street, 2700 block of Poplar Street, in order to save money. And I was like, I'll rent a room. This person was willing. That's a funny word to say. This person almost lured me in. And I almost didn't do it because I wasn't comfortable. There was a part of me that wanted to be more involved. And it's like, I've been living alone for so long. I wish I sort of had more of a community. I'll save money by renting a room in this woman's house. It was part of a dragon boat race team that I participated in. I was on the cusp because I was like, she seems okay, but it's a hard thing to do, especially as an adult, because it can feel like downsizing. Like, I'm supposed to go up, I'm supposed to be owning a home, but I'm in this sort of world where technically, in my group that I grew up in, independent women really aren't cherished. Um, Most people who are successful are married, have a dual income. Maybe they have kids, maybe not, but they are not an independent woman um, speaking out in various ways. So I'm just going to put it that way. I do believe I grew up in a very male dominated system. And you want to talk about, who gets rewarded and who doesn't. Well, the status quo, the heterosexual couples producing or having kids in some capacity, and so forth and so on. But if you're someone who pursued a dream, was trying to get out here to use your voice, punishment came down heavy-handed in a big way. So, and even women who were supposed to be sort of supporting other women weren't. So even people who were purport to be, part of the LGBT community, part of the feminist community, they participated and brought me down big time. They should be ashamed of themselves. I am surprised that these people towed the line for the heterosexual male. And they would hate hearing that, but they are part of that world, and that is how they are supported. So 2700 block Poplar, I decide to save money. I'll go up there, rent out a room, brought my cats, the whole 9 yards. That woman turned on a dime. It was like in a severe way. I was nervous about doing it because you do have to put trust in people, so forth and so on. I get up there, and all of a sudden this person starts behaving in a very, she starts changing things up. Even the moving date had to be changed because she acted as if we had not agreed on a moving date. And I had made plans with Pearl Properties and other people who I knew who were going to help me move some of my belongings. And this person changed on a dime. It's in my book, Blessing Dress Factories in the Making. And she's like, oh, you can't move in Sunday night. I have people coming over. And I'm sitting there getting the key from her at her workplace thinking, which is an acupuncture office. You get it, puncture? Saying, oh, I thought, we agreed on Sunday night. Oh, no, you can't do that. And I was like, fine. Well, what day is good for you? So already, it's almost like if someone marries the wrong, like they think they're marrying someone good and maybe they change overnight on the honeymoon, all of a sudden they become like a total dud and bomb. That's what this person was. And some people might have argued that she acted this way. Maybe she's part of a certain, she had to pretend. No, she is actually a very disturbed person. So I had already made plans, already said I was leaving the Pearl Properties place where I was before. So I was like, I'll still go through with this because it's very temporary. I have, other ideas in the future. I wanted to move to the Pacific Northwest. I had a friend out there, so forth and so on. Other people were moving there who I thought were friends. I get in there, and this woman starts behaving in a very maniacal and hysterical maniac. She does have a severe mental issue. She actually does. And I normally would be very kind, like something must have happened. I don't know. But because she was so poorly behaved, and purports to be as if she were some, highfalutin whatever, I will stick it to her. This person is a very messed up person. She actually is like that. And she's not putting on an act for another purpose. So eventually I talked to a bunch of people after a couple of weeks. I'm like, now she's digging a hole in the basement. She had the city come in, digging a hole in the sidewalk and in the basement. I feel like I had to put up money up front so that she could afford to do that. That's how bad that is. And we are talking people were going after someone who was trying to save money, who was surviving in a certain way, having sort of branched off and tried to lead an independent life. So we are talking hundreds of dollars. She's having people come in to dig up. I know she paid to have special people come in, not necessarily the city, but into her basement to dig up pipes or what have you. Anyway, because of her behavior, and it was so bad, I desperately sought out this other apartment or other apartments, was shown 626 South 19th Street. And for the showing through OCF Realty Company, which is it a coffee house or is it a realty company? Through them, they had 5 people seeing that apartment at the same time, as if it were The Apprentice and the goal was to outbid people on a condo in Brooklyn. There was an actual episode that I thought of. You're fired, OCF. Normally, any other time that I've seen apartments, they just show it to you as an individual person, not 5 people competing and vying for. So see how it puts the pressure on in the competition? I was in such a hurry to get out of that place and so desperate that I was like, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it. I wanted to fill it out first. I think all those people who showed up were fake in order to make sure. It's almost like they all conspired to make sure I would hurry up and want to apply and put out more money again that I didn't have. Luckily, I had a check coming from Pearl Properties for the security deposit in order to be able to pay them. That's how bad that is. That is how money draining that is. I wound up there. It's south of Sharon's Bank. I didn't really think of it. I was just like, what a coincidence. But later on, now that I see a city infrastructure. But anyway, I do believe I was baited in a big way to get out of Pro Properties, up there to the art museum, and then down here. And then the games commenced after that. So in a way, I don't know if that was a detour or a way to throw people off for a second in order to get down there. I don't really know. But I do know that a lot of people played a role to see where I fit on the, Kinsey scale or the INFP personality scale. A lot of people were out there, like they kind of had a questionnaire personality about them and might have been sort of either interrogating or trying to figure out what kind of person I was in order to better customize the fear factor and the terrorization that would unfold that 4th Monday of January 2011. It is very disturbing that a criminal ring, a very large criminal ring, Lord of the Rings, Olympic rings, is so intertwined and large that this could be the case of the century. And I'm still here living, and I'm ready to testify against you. Thank you so much, and have a great day.